I saw that in Cornwall many years ago, and it said so much to me about the nature of reality and what's happening. And that was I forget the name of the artist now, but it was based on the Eurocrats and this particular guy that run what was it, a supermarket or a shopping mall. He was very anti-EU, and they portrayed the artist portrayed the EU as a reptilian Hun, which is quite interesting. And the idea of monopoly, I mean, I'm just going to keep this brief because I've got so many things to go through, but the idea as part of the global Babylon again and the left brain structure, the whole of society, for me, just looks like a giant monopoly board. I don't know about you, but going round and round and round. And I've just done some imagery recently for my friend David Icke, and a lot of this relates to this. I can't show you some of it. I can show you a few bits of it for other reasons, which I will do. But the whole idea of the monopoly board and us going round and round and round, and then we die, and then we have a death tax apparently now. Whether you saw that in the newspaper not long ago, but they're thinking of charging us the privilege of £20,000 on average for dying. Should be quite interesting to see how that works. It's just nonsense, isn't it? Don't you think? And we have extreme poverty, of course we do, because of the nonsense of what's going on in the world. And at the other end of the scale, in terms of a juxtaposition, we have extreme wealth. Now, you can't have both the same going on in a peacefully balanced and harmonious and loving world. There's something wrong here. There has to be something wrong if you have these two juxtapositions. I saw this on the net, which made perfect sense. Peace makes sense. The amount of money we spend on war, as opposed to all the other things we could be spending it on. In fact, we're not spending it, are we? Let's be honest here. We're not spending it. Somebody's spending it on our behalf, and that's the greatest example of giving our power away. And then you have all the new taxes. And I thought, well, let's have a new tax. I thought maybe the fart and pay tax would be. I mean, don't rule it out. It might well come up. I've got some things I'm going to show you later on, which relate to the new documents that came out, which look at all these pay-as-you-go stuff. But yeah, the whole idea of the climate change and it's all about taxation, as we know. There you go. That's proof of global warming. And they said, don't make a song and dance about it. Oh, sorry, I know. And then, I mean, the fact that this was pulled off, a couple hundred years ago, the window tax, which came up with the term of daylight robbery, and people were boarding up their windows because they were trying to, not pay so much money to the coffers of the elite structures that we go on about. Well, they'll try anything, believe me. And we're crazy enough to buy into it. And I saw this in a newspaper, and I thought, this is it. This is exactly it. Keeping us constantly on the move, trying to consume things and buy things. And as somebody said on the panel, I forget who it was, it might have been Leo, it might have been Michael, talking about the shadow self. I mean, that image speaks for itself, doesn't it? The shadow is greater than the human that is casting it. Depends on the angle of the sun, which we'll come to. We worship the stars in Babylon. We worship the stars. It says it all, doesn't it? We've been worshipping the stars for thousands of years, but our attention's been focused on the stars, and Hollywood is the perfect place because of its name and its location. In many ways we're sleepwalking, not all of us, there's a lot of people waking up, but there's a general sleepwalking going on, and I think that sleepwalking is a good thing in some ways, because what it's doing is making us realise the dream. And we get into a point like the donkey was wafting around, in the air. We've come to a point where we know things have to change. And I think we have to get a little bit crazy, and I think this is what's going to happen. I saw this, I thought it was fantastic. I mean, can you imagine that through the streets of Bath? Do I attract these people? I'm not joking. Everywhere I go. I mean, I was sitting in Oxford the other day, and I attract them all the time. And they're not mentally ill, actually. They're actually more sane than the sleepwalkers that are walking around, which is quite interesting. This guy came and sat with us while we were having some food, and he was talking about left brain and right brain, and he was speaking a million miles an hour, but I understood everything he was saying, because I was soaking it up consciously. But yeah, it didn't look like him, but it wasn't too far away. Yeah, so there you go. That's the perfect pill for it. That's what we need to take, I feel. I told you it would be visual. And then the type of, like I say, what Babylon has created in my mind is chaos in the mind. And what energies and forces feed off us relate to the energy that we invest in the global structure or the global Babylon state of mind. I won't go into explaining that because I think the image speaks 1,000 words, but you can see the idea of the earth and the human form being interconnected, which I'll come to as we go through. So my feeling, and I've written this into Kokoro, is that, and it comes out in all of the cave art that I've looked at, not lots of it, but particularly Bronze Age art, around sort of 6,000 years ago. And also you can see it going further and further back into the period around 30,000 years ago, where there was some kind of rift, there was some kind of split in the psyche, or the divine form split. And what the Hopi call it is the split of the Supreme Being. You can give it whatever name you like, but there was some kind of chasm or schism that occurred. And what I've tried to portray here is this moving away from the human divine form, and as this form took shape, what I'm representing here is the nature of oneness, the human form, and as the form took shape, it related to fear and doubt, and that grew and became bigger, and it created a world of its own. And that world of its own fused every molecule, every atom, every energy it could into creating this structure. And you've probably seen this work. If you looked at some of David's work or other work, you might have seen this imagery before. So this great red serpent, in my mind, is an embodiment of the fear that has created the world in its own liking. Not the world that belongs to us in terms of true human beings, but in the world in its own liking, and we have to remember that. What I also found is that as I was going into this and looking at it, and again, some of the work I've done for other authors, inside this structure, more often than not, no matter what religious denomination you come from, we're serving God with the devil to pay because of the nature in which energy is being infused back into this. The New Age in itself is an entrapment in many cases. So you come in, you think you're going up some kind of ladder, and next thing you're down a snake, because you're not getting any further with your own individual development as the others were talking about. I promise you it would be a visual feast. I see it like this more often than not, and this is not a negative viewpoint, because I think it's one of the bravest things to accept, that probably one of the bravest things we would be doing would be being born. None of the other things we do are relevant, because all the decisions we make in life, whether they are to do this or to go here or to whatever it is, they're all trivial. They're the small detail in the contract. That's the sweating over little things. The fact that you've been born is the bravest thing, because of the nature of the reality we're being born into. And that's how I see this, all lining up ready for the feast. Interestingly, the reason why I chose the serpent, I'll just get the serpent stuff out of the way and I'll come back to it a bit later, is that the ancient imagery in Babylon was very much the serpent lord, and this is where this comes from. I went to a wonderful exhibition at the British Museum about a year and a half ago, and it had lots of imagery like this, and that's why you find it in places like Baby London and other places around the world, because it's part of that city structure. And there's other authors gone into it in great detail, like you say. I haven't got time to do it, but and then I found this as I think it was an image that was around the time of the 1910 or something, turn of the 20th century, which looked at the different ages. And the reason why I'm showing you this is because this kind of image is something that keeps cropping up within my own work, and it's what I call the god of the Illuminati, or the god of Babylon. It's not God, it's a god, it's a different thing completely. And these are the four ages, and believe me, this is what they're aiming toward. This is the 10 kingdoms and the New World Order, and they're moving towards this with, as you know from other people's research. But I thought the imagery was very striking because it comes up in other areas as well, and not least the Gnostic and the Zionist stuff. But again, this is the idea of their God, and I've encoded it in within my own work. Interestingly enough, I was in I think it was Cyprus about 4 or 5 years ago, and I got chatting to a guy in the hotel, and I said to him, "Are you a Freemason?" And he went, "Yeah, how do you know that?" I said, "Well, your tattoo gives it away." And he went, "Oh, really?" And I said, "What level are you?" And he said, "Oh, I'm only a 2nd degree." I said, "You should have a look at my website when you get back." He never contacted me again, which is interesting. But this is Blake's rendition of it. They know about this stuff because it's all encoded into their initiations. But that's Orison. That's the voice of reason or logic, or as it says there quite clearly, the censoring your thoughts and binding your aspirations. That's their agenda. That's what they're doing. In fact, theirs is the Lord of Chaos. Theirs is the Lord of light being used for chaos. I mean, I was in America last year and I saw this. I thought they've even got nursing homes. It's hilarious, isn't it? I mean, can you imagine them all doing the rituals and before breakfast? Anyway, no, and it's funny. They're more open about it in America. So yeah, this is the structure that I've encoded into Kokoro, and this is the deity and the symbolism that works within that pyramid structure. And then here's something I've been working on recently, which is a new piece. But this is exactly what it is, and it's quoted in the Bible. And for all those that have any doubt about the work that the likes of David has been doing and others, then it's quite clearly in Matthew. If you look at the text, supposedly from the words of Christ himself, when he challenges the scribes and Pharisees, which are the Zionist structures of today, no matter which way you look at it, and the council structures and the governmental structures, and he says, yours is the house of desolation, the home of the lizard and the spider. Brood of vipers, how can any of you escape damnation? And this is where this idea came from, and for other reasons as well. You've probably seen it in other forms.